Konnichiwa!
That means hello in Japanese, which is our country for week 3. And tonight I'm going to take you through just the starting ingredients for our baked chicken katsu with tonkatsu sauce on the side. So we're going to get started by kind of showing you what we have to work with here. We're going to need our chicken breast here. We have a total of about 1.5 pounds of chicken breast. We'll have our 2 eggs, 6 tablespoons of flour, salt and pepper to taste, our olive oil, and our panko breadcrumbs. This is something that you can find at Walmart in Litchfield. Doubt that we have them in Hardinsburg, but you just never know.
And panko breadcrumbs are Japanese breadcrumbs. They're just kind of little crunchy. They're delicious. You'll love them.
We're also going to need 3 specific types of shallow bowls. One is going to be for egg, one is going to be for flour, and one is going to be for the panko crumbs to build our baked chicken. You'll need parchment paper for laying down underneath the chicken, but you can also substitute that with aluminum foil if you don't have parchment paper. The rolling pin, if you're wondering, I do not have a meat tenderizer, so I'll be tenderizing the chicken with this, by laying a piece of parchment paper on top of it and taking out my remote learning my remote learning frustrations and Google frustrations on the chicken. For the tonkatsu sauce over here, 4 very simple ingredients that you'll need. The Worcestershire sauce, you should have it from making the English shepherd's pie. The ketchup, soy sauce, and sugar. So those are the simple ingredients we'll need to make this wonderful dish.
So you want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. But the thing that's a little bit tricky is specifically for this recipe, you need your upper rack and the upper middle part of your oven. So let me show you what that looks like in ours. So I've got it here on the second rung from the top. That's going to keep it nice and close to that upper heating element so that our chicken can get nice and crunchy. The other thing we need to do to get set up before we get going with our recipe is line our baking sheet with parchment paper.
Or aluminum foil. Okay, next we're going to get our 3 bowls ready for coating the chicken. So the first bowl is going to be for our flour. So take your 6 tablespoons of flour and kind of spread it thinly. If you don't have a ramekin shape like this, you can use a really, really thin bowl or some sort of cooking dish, just something shallow enough to hold the material but have the chicken dip into. The second one is going to be for the egg, and you need to kind of whisk the egg lightly with a fork or a small whisk if you want. But 2 large eggs in there. Yeah, 2 large eggs in there. And then our third one we're going to leave empty for now, because once we're done toasting our panko crumbs, they will go into there.
Now we have a small pan over medium heat, and we're going to toast our panko breadcrumbs. So to do that, I've already got my pan hot, so it's been heating up for a couple of minutes. I'm going to put in my 6 tablespoons of olive oil, and then add 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs. You want to stir that until the oil is kind of incorporated into all of the breadcrumbs, and look how quickly those are toasting. I should have started my timer. These will probably all be golden brown in less than a minute. So we want to keep an eye on these and stir them constantly so none of them get burnt, but we want every crumb to be nice and gold when we're finished. It's been 1 minute and our breadcrumbs are nice and golden brown. So we're going to remove those from heat and then put them into our container in the breading lineup.
All right, next is the part I've been looking forward to. We have our chicken ready to go, and it's already been washed off, and I have a little piece of saran wrap covering it, just so I don't make a giant mess everywhere. I'm going to take this, and if you have a meat tenderizer, that's great, but I'm going to use this and pound it down to a 1/2 inch in thickness. And again, this is not an exact science, but just use your eyeballs. It needs to be thin enough that it's going to bake evenly from top to bottom. That's pretty much it right there. And actually, since this is a really big chicken breast, I'm going to go and cut it into thirds so it looks more like a chicken tender, basically. And actually, Mrs. Jennings, I think I can probably cut this into 4ths. It's so big.
Sure.
So I'm going to cut this into sizes about that big. Now, you can do a whole chicken breast. It's totally up to you and the size that you get from the store. And no chicken breast is the same. But then they're into small, reasonable pieces, and I'll get a lot more breading on them. And it's all about the breading and the egg and the panko. Okay, now that we've pounded the chicken and cut it up into small tenderloin pieces, I'm going to take it and first dip it into the flour, then the egg, and then the panko crumbs. And the idea is to, when you put it in the flour, Make sure you get a really good coating all the way around it. This seals in the moisture. Then I'm going to dip it into the egg. Obviously, I've washed my hands prior to doing this. And then, again, get it covered very well with the egg and then dip it into the panko crumbs. And the good news is if you run out of panko, you can always make some more because it only took a minute to toast it. And cover it really, really nicely. There's no reason to be stingy here. And there's one. I'm going to go and do another one here on the camera. I'm going to go into the flour, get it completely covered up to seal in the moisture. And then dip it into the egg. Get it covered really, really well. It's a sticky, sticky mess. If you've got a young brother or sister at home or a toddler or something, this is a great activity they can help with because it's messy and it's fun and they really can't.
As long as they don't put raw eggs in their mouth.
True. And I'm dipping it in the panko, which looks amazing. And just continue to lay it out. And make sure you leave a little bit of space on the pan to make sure that the air can circulate through and get them all really, really nice and crispy. Okay, so they are all laid out on the pan, ready to go. I just need to add a little bit of salt and pepper to them. And Mrs. Jennings was kind enough to do these, so I'm just doing the last one here. Just a couple twists of salt and pepper to your own tasting. And then it needs to go in the oven. And the recipe originally called for whole breasts, but we cut these into basically chicken strips. So we decided we're going to try out 8 minutes on each side and see how that goes.
All right, now we're going to make our Tonkatsu sauce to go with our katsu baked chicken. So we just need a 1/4 cup of my favorite W sauce, Worcestershire sauce. That'll go right in here. A 1/4 cup of ketchup. 1 teaspoon of sugar. And 2 teaspoons of soy sauce. Mix it up, and that's it.
Cooked them out at 8 minutes and 30 seconds, and they're looking pretty good. So I'm going to go and flip them over. You can use tongs. I'm using a spatula because I'm not that fancy. And then we're going to go ahead and guesstimate another 7-8 minutes and just kind of check on them there. We'll let you know what we find. Okay, it is time to check on our chicken. I'm going to pull them out. And I have an internal thermometer here because we're looking for chicken to be at 165 degrees Fahrenheit to be safe to eat. And let's do a little check here and see how we're doing. These have been in for right at 8 minutes on each side. Looks like we are at our mark, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. A tip is with meat, if you take it out just a hair before it's done, it keeps cooking. So if you let it go way past, that's what makes chicken or beef or pork really, really tough. We have a tendency to way overcook things sometimes. So if you take it out just a hair early, it'll continue to cook for another minute or two while you let it sit on the pan because it still has all this internal heat. It has all this external heat still. So 165 degrees is your mark. But if you can pick up one of these cheap thermometers at Walmart, just about anywhere. They're about $5-6.
And now it's time to try our katsu baked chicken. Baked katsu chicken. Perfect and crunchy. Dip it in our sauce. Oh yeah. The sauce has a little bit of tang to it. Kind of like a vinegary-based barbecue sauce is sort of what it tastes like. Really, really delicious. We're having ours with a salad. Feel free to add some vegetables, but kids, you do need to eat some vegetables with your delicious, crunchy Japanese chicken.